time is a beautiful element. Thankfully, I feel a lot more grounded in this work because I have a physical space to practice out of. And I think for all of the amazing land-based visions there are, it's really hard to activate them when there isn't a physical place to practice. I went into this very clear that this is going to be a no-till project.
Okay.
So there's been no tillage here. And, you know, not to be kind of like any high moral ground with no-till. The reason no-till matters is really as a response to soil stripping and erosion from commercial farming and monoculture that basically takes all of the life out of the soil and then forces like chemicals and drugs into the soil. And so no-till is a way for the soil to naturally regenerate and build up, which leads to better crops, better human health, better ecology. The land that we're on is also known as Earthseed Land Collective, a group of 7 amazing people that have been organizing for 10 years to finally land on this space. And I have been practicing here pretty much since then as a vegetable farmer and community organizer. This work really started at Earthseed in 2019, and it started as one bed with flax and indigo and has grown into a much larger practice space. DADA is an experiment in a question of what does it take to have community-run natural textile production. Kind of the space between homestead and the private domestic sphere and like multinational extractive production. Somewhere in the middle where the people can come and learn and connect and develop a relationship to these old ways of being together that typically involve food and fiber. And so with this journey of seed to cloth, there's this agricultural agrarian piece of actually growing our raw materials. Material culture is sort of a conduit for spirituality and divine kind of ways of being and understanding the world. That seed to cloth journey is long and not as instant gratification as food, where with food there's a lot of upfront inputs, but at the end you can eat and be satisfied and fed. With textiles, it's a little bit of a slower inputs up front, or a little bit less inputs up front, but the labor really comes after harvest. And I think what's fed through that process is spirit, is relationship, is a different kind of nourishment that is not necessarily about filling your belly, but like filling your heart. And yeah, we were talking about, well, your instincts, or like flavors that call to you, or just being drawn to something is a way to kind of trace where you're from.
That's right.
Diedie is a Yoruba word or term that slightly translates to little by little, slow and steady, small by small. And so that's definitely the kind of ethics that I run this work by. I think that's kind of the growing edge for DADA, and like how do we grow with intention and clarity, the kind of folks we want to invite into a working relationship.